you can't obtain the float if you're wheezing. Hi, and welcome back to Running Rants with Helen. I'm still Helen, and this is where I rant and talk about whatever I want. And today I wanted to talk about like training and easy runs, and then also how my last race went. And today I'm here at Pally Valley on the Broken Arrow course. That'll be my next race. I'm running the 46K, and so we're just gonna do a loop. We are a little bit over halfway done, and yeah, we're obviously running on snow now, but there really hasn't been that much snow. I've run this race twice, but I feel like it is good for me to run the loop again, because then you remember the parts that you forget. And so last weekend I ran Silver State Half Marathon, which I talked about in the last video, but I hadn't run the race yet. And it went well. I beat MK, thank goodness, although I think we determined that I got disqualified because I didn't wear a full UTMB kit. But I was super happy with how it went. I got second overall. Our friend Matt beat me by like 3.5 minutes. And then I found out I got the course record. So I ran 1:37, and the previous course record was from 2013. I think it was like 1:41. So that's pretty exciting. I usually ask Rick how long he thinks it'll take me. Just like so I could pack enough nutrition stuff. But this time I decided I didn't want to know how fast he thought. This time I didn't ask Rick until after, because sometimes, like, I guess I just noticed during Cerro Gordo when I realized I was going to run a lot faster than he thought I was going to. Like, I feel like I kind of almost gave myself an out to slow down. And so this time I kind of thought how fast I thought I could run, and I'm usually pretty close to what Rick thinks, but I didn't ask him. And I thought I could run like 1:45, and then Jacob thought I could run 1:42, and that's actually what Rick said too when I asked him after. So it was good. It was really hot. I should have started with an ice bandana. I thought MK was being a little extra, but she wasn't. By the time I got to the first aid station, which is like 3 miles in, I was so hot. But yeah, I guess it ties into the topic for today, because I think my average pace is like 7:20 something, and I pretty much never run that fast. Like, I guess maybe sometimes during workouts, depending on what they are, but also a lot of the time my workouts are just like uphill reps. So then I'm actually never really running that fast. And I think Jacob said it after the mile. We run a lot together, but he even said, sometimes I forget about how fast you actually are, because he mostly sees me run like 13-minute pace. And yeah, I feel like that's had me thinking about, because MK said something too, because we were maybe gonna do this together, and she's like, no, I'm too slow on the uphills. And she said, for how fast I am, like, I run a lot slower than, she accidentally said should. I don't think she meant to say should, but I usually keep things very chill, and I think I kind of figured out why. I think it's because on easy days I don't like feeling like I'm trying, like, at all, because if you keep it chill enough and you're not having a hard time, then sometimes it just feels like you're like floating. and it's no thought, no chill, no heavy breathe, just float. But you can't obtain the float if you're wheezing. And I don't think that the float can be obtained if your heart rate's over 120. Which I guess that means that I do a lot of my training in zone 1. Some of it's in zone 2. And then workouts are harder. But I don't know. I think Corinne Malcolm self-proclaimed herself as the slowest pro runner. But I actually think it's me. I looked back on my Strava graph and divided my hours by my miles. And I think most of the time my average pace is between 11 minutes and 12:30. But I think it also keeps it, I've talked about having a certain amount of try hard. And I think keeping my easy days very easy saves all of my try hard for races. And then I'm able to run a lot faster than I normally run. Like today, I think that this loop will probably take us right over 3 hours. And I hope that on race day, I'm able to do 2 loops in 4:30 would be really cool, but I don't know if that's gonna happen. I think also generally, I think it's hard when you start out running because it just always all feels hard. But then I feel like you just get used to it feeling hard. So even when you get in better shape, you just still keep running at a pace that makes it feel the same way. Or even if it feels easier than it did at first, it's still too hard. Yeah, and also this works for me. Running 12-minute pace day in and day out is I don't know, I'm still good at running. But I don't know, Rod one time said if I could run 11-minute miles and get third at CCC, I would. And he was kind of saying a little sassy. And it's well, first of all, Rod, have you tried? I think the answer is no, you haven't. But also maybe it wouldn't work for him, I don't know. Last time I ran here, we just slid our butts all the way down. But this time there's a road. Yeah, but I think that's the whole thing. Running this way also makes me really happy. It's how I enjoy training. And MK's not like that. She likes doing workouts and likes running a little bit faster. And she is still very good at running too. So I think that's kind of the cool thing about trail running and ultras is there's a lot of different formulas to get a similar result. And I think that Rick and I just figured out my formula is tricking me into doing workouts and running pretty slow most of the time, which is also a relative term. In the whole scheme of things, 12-minute miles are not slow. A 15-minute mile really isn't that slow. But I think in the world of professional trail running, it is, especially when people are haha, easy day, and they're running 7:30 pace. I was that, and who? It's not easy. Maybe it is. I don't think it is. I think I also for years was a victim of running all of my easy days too hard, and I ended up being sad. And now I run slow and I'm not sad. Right now, and I started wearing my heart rate monitor again, and by again I mean I never wore it, and I've been wearing it for the last 4 days, but my heart rate's at 113, and so and we're going downhill, so that makes it a little bit easier, but that's how you can achieve float. Except also kind of scary death. But sometimes, I guess the other thing with training, which I've already kind of talked about, is I don't think that there's really training wrong as long as you're happy and your training aligns with like what you're trying to accomplish. And maybe that's like doing well at races, or maybe it's not. So I don't really know. As long as you're, well, and even you could be unhappy. Like I watched that Killian video about how he's training different, and to me it just seems really sad. But I also understand like he has an obvious goal that he's like very committed to, which is states. But I don't know, I feel like it's sad when you like live in this beautiful place and you're like, ah yes, outside, and then you're like, but it's not hot enough, so I must go inside. Well, and even I saw Tommy Sullivan. I ran up a climb called Allison Ridge, and I saw him, and he was doing reps on it. But there's like 3 other climbs, and so you can make them loops. But he was just doing Allison repeats. And I said, Tommy, you could have made this a lot more fun. And he did say, I'm not trying to have fun. It's like, I think most of the time my goal, like obviously I want to be good at running, but I also want to have fun. And so for me, that's like planning interesting routes and running slow. But that's also not to say that like doing it the other way is like bad or wrong. I think it just doesn't really work for me. Because I race better when I'm happy. But I also think that's like, I've talked about this, but like kind of one of the important things about having a coach that understands you and like the way that you're good at running, and like what makes you happy. After a brief intermission of route finding in the snow and, I don't know, taking some water from a nice jug. Jug isn't the right word. It was like one of the self-serve things in high camp. Because I don't think the tram's open yet, so the building wasn't really open, but we found some water, so that was nice. Yeah, so getting back to it, pretty much, I've said it before, I'll say it again, train however you want to train. I just think, I think it was especially the Killian thing. I'm like, is everyone okay? Like, especially all you States people, are you okay? Because, well, I don't know. I would say hours per week. I'm a pretty high hours per week kind of gal, but I would say I'm like in the middle-ish with mileage. Like I'm usually running like 70 to 90-ish. But depending on how hilly it is, that either takes me like 13 to 19 hours. So I guess maybe it's not that crazy, but like, I don't know. Like, Esther ran like a 50-mile long run. Abby Hall keeps running like a bajillion-mile long runs. She ran like 140 miles in a week, which to me just seems a little crazy. But then if I look at her hours, it was like 22 hours, and it's like, oh, it's actually really not that crazy. It's just you ran really fast, which I guess States is different. But I don't know. I hope everyone's having an okay time, I guess is what it comes down to. Yeah. I feel like I would also feel kind of frustrated though. Like, if I kept running races and then after every race, if it didn't go that well, I'd be like, it's just my fitness. But like, I don't know, I've talked to Jacob about this. Like, if my fitness was always the limiting factor, I feel like I'd be kind of annoyed with Rick. Because my fitness is his job, I think. Everything else is my job. And if I'm doing everything that he's telling me to do, but then I'm still just like getting left in the dust, I feel like that'd be kind of frustrating. But I think I also maybe have a somewhat unique perspective on that like, I don't really think that like me being fit for a race is really my business, I feel like that's all on Rick. And I mean, I think like once in a while it's okay, because I feel like that was honestly kind of my limiting factor at Tarawera. But also it was February, and I shouldn't have been in the best shape ever for that. Wow. I'm not doing that. Because I don't know, I feel like I have enough things to think about with racing, like eating and I don't know, like my tactics and what I'm gonna wear. Actually, most of that's taken care of, but I don't want to be like second guessing if I'm like out of shape or like not fit enough to keep up with other girls. Yeah, I guess in conclusion, running slow doesn't actually make you slow. Running slow, I think, makes you fast. I don't know. I think that's kind of the gist of it. I will say, I'm feeling pretty frothed about this whole Broken Arrow thing. The last time I was here, I was skiing. And I don't know, I feel like sometimes we're all, oh yeah, we're just running on a ski resort. But it is actually kind of cool. There are some cool parts of this race. I feel like especially like enough of the snow is melted that we get to run like down on the single track instead of the ski run. And I feel like that makes it pretty fun too. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to Broken Arrow, because I feel like usually the 46K is like there's a few fast people, but it's not like super deep. And this year I feel like it is. And I think that makes the racing like more exciting and more fun. So I'm pretty stoked for that. And like, I don't know, I was telling Jacob when we were running here, since it's so close to where I live, it like just feels like my hometown race. And I know so many of the volunteers, and like even as we're running here, I'm like, oh, and this year, or like that one year, I saw this person that I know here, or I saw this person. And yeah, I don't know, I just feel like it makes it really fun. And I think my grandparents are gonna come watch. I don't really mind the 2 loops, even though generally I don't love looped courses. This loop isn't too bad though.
Yeah, talk about how mileage and hours and intensity all kind of correlate with like what you're trying to get out of your training, and how that's individualized. Like it's really person to person. Like some people may get more confidence out of running more mileage or more workouts, and like it's such an individual thing.
Yeah, like I feel like I don't really get a lot of confidence from training, and I feel like that's partially because I run slow. Even sometimes I forget that I'm fast. I'm like, oh my gosh, I literally am so slow, but it's not true, and I just kind of forget. So that's why I think these last races have been good. But yeah, I feel like some people just do better with high mileage or low mileage. And so, like I said, I feel like this is overused, but it's kind of like a puzzle, and not everyone's formula is the same to get the answer. And I feel like that's something that makes it, I don't know, pretty fun and exciting, because you never know. Like, I think I saw Emily Hawgood was on a podcast. She's like, yeah, I run 60 miles a week. And I mean, that's still in the realm of running a lot of miles, but like I feel like we've kind of gone back to the high mileage days, and so then that's like half as much as some people are running, and she's still very, very good. And so I think like other people like that, like Leah, I think historically hasn't run super high mileage, but yeah, I think it's just like it also kind of depends on like what your life is like. Like I used to not run this much, but I also had a job. But I feel like it's good to see like examples of people doing well with different training, and that's something that I appreciate about Rick too, is that all of us kind of have different training. Yeah, I guess also just like in the day and age of Strava, when you can see what a lot of people are doing, even though a lot of people don't put their stuff on there, like I think it's just good to remember that just because someone is running a lot more than you, or I don't know, they did X, Y, and Z in training, that doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily beat you at a race, because you just never know. Yeah, so I feel like sometimes it's important to just remember that more isn't always better. For some people it is, and generally if you stay healthy and you're not running that much and then you run more, you do kind of get faster to a certain point. But I always wonder what that point is, or like when you're just like too tired and then you're not absorbing stuff. I don't really know. All this to say, I'm not a coach. I'm not an exercise physiologist. This is just me talking about whatever I want.
Speaking of Broken Arrow, this will be your fourth time running, is that right?
Well, it'll be my third time running the 46K, but I ran the VK in 2022.
Okay, so since last time you ran Broken Arrow, how do you think you've grown as an athlete?
Yeah, I mean, generally, I feel like I have, wow, this is a river. I mean, generally, I think I have a lot more experience, and I mean, that year too, yeah, I don't know. Honestly, emotionally, I was having a pretty bad time, which may have made me run better. Like, I had a panic attack at work the day before the race, and it all worked out, and it was fine. And so, I think, well, that was also after Argentina, and so I hadn't really been running a ton. But I think like this year going into it, I think I just have a lot more race experience, especially like actually racing people. And I mean, since then, I've probably run this loop a few more times. And I think generally I'm just like happier in life than I was at that point, which usually makes me run better. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe being unhappy was good for my running. Yeah. I think I'm at a little bit more of a disadvantage than I was last time, just because last time there was like, I would say 70% of the course was covered in snow, and I don't know, I feel pretty comfortable for the most part running on snow, and this year I would say maybe 10%, which just makes it faster, but yeah, I feel like I have a lot more practice hiking up.
Cool. if someone is watching this and they're coming to do Broken Arrow for their first time ever, let's assume that it's not an elite runner, what advice would you give them?
I feel like even if it is an elite runner, I feel like my advice would be look up. I feel like during races it's so easy to just like head down and grind. But I think here especially, it's so pretty. And if you look back on the course, you can like see all of the like high points you were at, which I find super cool. Last year I didn't run because I was hurt, and so the years that I haven't run, I volunteered, and so I was course marshaling, and then I was the sweep for the 23K, and I feel like that was a cool experience just to see what it's like, because I know what it's like at the front of the race is like an experiential thing, but also to see what it's like at the back. And I don't know, I feel like that was a cool perspective to gain, and also like how good of a job Broken Arrow does of like supporting everyone out there. It doesn't really matter if you're at the front or the back. I feel like you get like an equally enjoyable experience, and yeah, I think they just like do such a good job, and I can't emphasize that enough. Enjoy it. Do a good bell ringing, because I feel like I always mess that up, and also I don't know, in past years it's been kind of high, and jumping at the end of a race is a little tough. So probably save a little for the bell ringing.
I'm gonna add something to the bell ringing. I photographed the finish line at this race a bunch, and I think a lot of people don't realize how heavy and sturdy that bell is. So do not jump up and hit your head on it, because I've seen some serious carnage happen.
Okay, I have not seen that. That's crazy. So if you keep track of your hours and mileage, comment below what your average pace was for last week, and we'll see who's slower. This has been another episode of Running Rants with Helen. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.
Yeah.